Hello, boys and girls. My name is Miss Debbie, and thank you for listening to our stories each week. Today I have two books to share, two stories in honor of the celebration of the Chinese or the Lunar New Year, which is now the year of the snake. And so I thought I'd bring some Chinese folk tales to you. I think you'll enjoy them. Our first book is called 9-Color Deer by Kailin Duan. And you could see it's a white deer with all these beautiful speckles on her back. This is published by Levine Carrido in Montclair and Hoboken, New Jersey, and translated by Jeremy Tiang. Well, this is an interesting thing. A very long time ago, deep in the Kunlun Hills, there lived a mystical deer. Her antlers were white as snow, and her fur had 9 different colors in it, so she was called the 9-Color Deer. She lived with her companion, a little bird, deep in the stillness of the forest, in a place no humans knew about. And here she is. There's her companion bird, deep in the mystical forest. Oh, aren't these beautiful paintings? One day, while roaming through the hills, the 9-Colored Deer heard a cry for help. Coming from a lake deep within the hills, someone was drowning. Look at the little deer sitting in her antlers. "Help!" she heard a cry. She ran towards the voice through the wilderness, over the hills, and across the winding river. Usually a river leads to a lake. And here she is running, because it's important to go fast when somebody needs help. In the center of the lake, a young man struggled, about to be swallowed by the water. The 9-Colored Deer sprang across the lake, leaping from wave to wave until she had reached him. Here she is leaping over the waves. Look at that beautiful sun, and it's a golden sun. And here is the young man. He's doing the universal sign, "Help! Help, I'm drowning." Together they stepped lightly over the waves. Wow. The young man cried, "How can I ever repay you for saving my life, O noble deer?" "All I ask," said the deer, "is that you tell no one of my whereabouts. Now hurry on home." And with that, the 9-Colored Deer disappeared back into the forest. How can I ever repay you for saving my life? The young man returned home and didn't breathe a word about what had happened to him. That is, until news arrived from the imperial palace. And here's his village. Most villagers lived in smaller homes, and there's the castle. The king's beloved wife had been looking unhappy. Tenderly, he asked her, "My queen, what is troubling your heart?" And here she is looking unhappy. And he says, "My dear, what is troubling your heart?" All the people in the background are his courtiers. 2 of them are holding fans, and the rest are available to grant his every wish. "I wish to sit. I wish to eat. I wish to drink." Nice to be a king. Well, the queen replied sadly, "A few days ago, I dreamed of a magical deer with 9 colors in its fur. Such a deer surely must have great powers, a magnificent prize to help our kingdom prosper. Can you find one?" So she dreamed of the deer, and look how happy she is. Isn't she beautiful? Can you find a 9-colored deer? "Is that all?" said the king. "That shouldn't be too difficult. I'll summon my entire kingdom to help you find this deer." And here's the king pointing to one of his courtiers. "All right, go out and summon the kingdom to find that 9-colored deer." Posters were plastered across the land seeking the 9-colored deer. When the young man saw the promised reward, he thought only of what the money would mean to his poor family, and he forgot all about his promise to the deer. So there's a reward, a monetary reward, a lot of money. And he thought of what that money would mean to his family. The king and queen were delighted to hear what the young man had to say. "The 9-colored deer has magic powers," said the young man. "You'll need to bring an army with you to capture it." And here he is. Look how little he seems in front of the king and queen. The king set forth with a large company of soldiers and horses, with the young man in front leading the way. The sky darkened as they crossed the plains and went deep into the hills, startling the watchful little bird. Here's the watchful little bird, the young man in front, the king following. Ooh, there's the king. Aren't these beautiful pictures? The little bird flew frantically back to the 9-colored deer, waking her from her nap, but it was too late. There was no time to hide. The king ordered his troops to surround the 9-colored deer and the little bird. They lifted their bows, took aim, and fired. Oh boy. That's really spooky. The arrows flew towards the 9-colored deer, but before they could reach their target, a dazzling white light blossomed around her, forcing the king and his men to shield their eyes. When they looked again, the arrows lay scattered and broken on the ground. Then the 9-colored deer said to the king, "I am the guardian spirit of this place. If you kill me, your kingdom will suffer an unimaginably awful fate." The young man tried to hide behind the soldiers, but the deer spotted him and said, "Sir, I saved your life when you were drowning. Is this how you pay me back?" Horribly ashamed, the young man knelt and begged for forgiveness. "I'm so sorry, kind dear," the young man cried, and he never broke a promise again. The king rode home and told his wife what happened. "Thank goodness," said the queen. "We almost made a horrible mistake." Together they ordered that no one should ever harm the 9-colored deer again. Over time, a mystical herd of deer has begun to appear among these hills. They all have 9 colors in their fur. As always, the little blackbird watches over them, and the country continues to flourish to this very day. I love the paintings in this book. Beautiful story. The Nine-Colored Deer. You can find this book in our library, in your library, in the fairy tale section 398.2 under China Stories. Thank you. I think this is kind of a new book in our collection. Well, fairly. All right, another story. Let's see. Okay. Wishbones, a folk tale from China, retold by Barbara Carr Wilson and illustrated by Meilo. Did you ever, when mommy cooked a roast chicken, get the wishbone and then let it dry out a little bit, and then you and your sibling could make a wish and then each hold a piece of the wishbone, and the one, when it cracks, the one who holds the biggest part at the top gets their wish. We used to do that as kids. Published by Bradbury Press in New York. Wishbones. Another beautiful scenery of old China. Ancient China, I guess. Thousands of years ago, in a cave among the hills of China, south of the clouds, there lived a chieftain called Wu. Wu's first wife had died, leaving a daughter, Ye Hishen, and her father loved her dearly. But Wu's second wife, who had a daughter of her own, was unkind to her stepdaughter. Every day she forced Ye Xin to chop wood and sent her to draw water from deep wells in dangerous places. So here's the father, whose name is Wu, and he's enjoying being with his daughter, Ye Hishen. So cute. And here is the stepmother and her daughter making Ye Hishen wear shabby clothes and going out and doing hard chores because they couldn't just turn on a water faucet. This is ancient times. She had to carry buckets of water in a pole across her back, and she had to get water from a stream or a lake. One day, while drawing water from a mountain pool, Ye Hishen saw a small fish with red fins and golden eyes. Such a fish had never been seen before. Ye Hishen caught the fish, brought it home to the cave, and put it in a bowl of water. She fed it on grains of rice saved from her own plate. And here she is going up to the little mountain lake, and there's the red fish in the water. And she kept a little secret cave for herself. And then that's where she put the fish in a bowl and fed it with her own supper, her own grains of rice. Each day, the fish grew larger and larger. At last, it was too big for the bowl, and Ye Hishen moved it into the pond that lay close by the cave. Whenever she went to the pond, the huge fish would rise to the surface and pillow its head on the bank. But it would appear only for Ye Hishen and never for anyone else. I should like to talk to that fish, Ye Hishen's stepmother said to her own daughter one day. I have often waited by the pond, but it will not appear for me. So there's the fish. It did get big, didn't it? And there's the mean stepmother. Look at those two. Then the stepmother thought of a cunning trick. That night, when Ye Hishen came home tired from her hard day's work, her stepmother said, "Poor Ye Hishen, how shabby you look in your worn-out coat. Take it off. Let me lend you my beautiful new jacket." Ye Hishen was astonished, but she did as she was told and put on the jacket. It felt warm and comfortable after her threadbare old coat. The next day, Ye Hishen was sent off on a long journey into the hills to gather herbs. As soon as she was out of sight, Her stepmother put on Ye Hishen's old coat and hid a sharp knife up her sleeve. Now we will see about that precious red and golden fish, she told her daughter. So, there's Ye Hishen with the fine coat, here, right here, and then the stepmother walking away with the shabby coat. And the stepmother puts on the shabby coat, but look what she takes, a knife. Ooh. She went to the pond and called to the fish. The fish, believing it was Ye Hishen standing there, leapt from the water and laid its head on the bank. Immediately, the cunning stepmother killed it with her sharp knife, and then she took it back to the cave and cooked it for their supper. That's the sad part of the story. This is the best fish I have ever tasted, Wu said, smacking his lips. His wife smiled. She did not tell her husband that it was Ye Hishen's fish. After supper, she buried the fish bones in the dung hill outside the cave. Imagine Ye Hishen's sorrow when she returned to discover her fish had gone. She went to the pond and called, but in vain. Isn't that sad? As she stood weeping, an old man with unkempt hair and a ragged coat appeared as if from the sky and stood before her. Don't cry, Ye Hishen. Your stepmother killed the fish and buried its bones in the dunghill. But those bones are magic. Hide them, and whatever you wish for will be granted. Ye Hishen did as she was told, and she found, just as the old man had said, that she could have anything she wanted by wishing on the fish bones. Before long, she had jewels, finely carved jade, and embroidered silk robes hidden away in her corner of the cave. Soon it was cave festival time, when the people of the hills south of the clouds gathered to celebrate and make music. Ye Hishen's father and her stepmother and stepsister set out to join the feasting, but Ye Hishen was left to guard the fruit orchard behind the caves. Her father was sorry to leave her, but he did not dare say anything for fear of his wife. Ye Hishen longed to go to the cave festival. No sooner was her family out of sight than she took off her everyday clothes and dressed herself in a shining blue and purple robe with violet silken slippers upon her small feet. All these the magic fish bones had brought her, and then she set out for the festival. Here is the stepmother and stepsister and the father riding on the horse, and he's waving goodbye to Ye Hishen. And here she is looking at herself in the mirror as she gets dressed up to go to the festival. How Ye Hishen enjoyed herself. She ate sweet bean cakes, laughed, and listened to the music, tapping her feet in their new violet slippers. She was dazzled by the lights of 100 lanterns. Later, as her eyes became used to the lights, she glanced about and saw her stepmother and stepsister looking at her in a puzzled way. Perhaps they recognized her. Seeing their frowns, Ye Hishen grew frightened. She ran away, and as she fled, a silken slipper fell from her foot. So here is the festival, eating. Look at them eating. Whoa, whoa, whoa. I like Chinese food. Do you? People are dancing in the background. And there's the stepmother and stepsister looking. And Ye Hishen starts to walk away looking. She's lost her slipper. When her stepmother came home, she found Ye Hishen asleep beneath a mulberry tree. wearing her everyday clothes once more. How could I have imagined that the beautiful woman in the blue and purple robe at the festival was my wretched stepdaughter, she asked herself. There she is spying on her. Now, not far from that place lay the kingdom of To Huan. After the festival, the cave people found Ye Hishen's violet slipper and took it to the king of To Huan, who at once bought the precious object. That's just the scenery. Oh, there's a faraway village up there. The young king commanded all the women of his household to try on the slipper, but it proved too small for even the tiniest foot. I will find the lady to whom this slipper belongs, the king declared. She shall be my queen. He sent out messengers with the precious slipper to search the countryside. At last they came to Wu's cave. First, Ye Hishen's stepmother tried on the slipper. It was far too small for her. Next, her daughter thrust it on her foot, but it was too small for her too. Last of all, Ye Hishen tried the slipper. It fitted her tiny foot perfectly. And here's the stepsister trying to fit her big foot into that tiny slipper. Maybe it fit on a toe. While her stepmother and stepsister watched in astonishment, Ye Hishen ran to her corner of the cave and put on the matching violet slipper and her fine blue and purple robe. Then the messengers took her back to the king of Tuwan, who made her his wife and queen of all the land. Here she is dressed up. No magic there. And what happened to those magic fish bones? Ye Hishen's wonderful wishbones. She took them with her to Huan, but the king wished for so much jade and jewelry and silk and gold during the first year of their marriage that at last the fish bones refused to grant any more of his desires. Husband, you have worn out their magic, Ye Hishen gently chided him. The king was deeply ashamed. He buried the fish bones near the seashore, and later the tide washed them away. They have never been found to this day. Isn't that a fun story? I love this story. And you can find this story in the Fairy Tale and Folktale collection, 398.2, under China, because it's a story from China. Well, thank you. Thank you for listening to those stories today, and stay tuned for more. Bye. Be well.